Thank you, Veli-Pekka. Next to the stage, Keith Ko, Osiris Bashir, Arjita Sethi, Phil Dillard, and Bobby Amiri.
Hi, everyone. I want to thank you all again for being here. Keith Koo from Silicon Valley. I'm an angel investor and a start mentor, and really want to first time in Finland, so I just want to thank you all for being great hosts, and to Petri and to Yari for hosting my team and our colleagues here. So a couple things. One of the things I don't really talk too much about here is I actually have a radio show in Silicon Valley called Silicon Valley Insider. That's more of my fun thing, but it is downloaded in about 130 countries. But I talk about emerging technology, I talk about investments, startups, a lot about corporate, where I came from. So currently, I'm an angel investor. I also am an advisor to US Capital Global. That is a $3 billion assets under management investment bank headquartered in San Francisco, but with offices in Europe, and we're opening up our Dubai office next week. One of the things that's really interesting is I've been in technology for almost 30 years. I might not look like it. And I was talking to Professor Ari a little bit earlier. I remember I was in M&A integration for Cisco, so this is really about communications and Cisco systems. When we did the first commercial Wi-Fi integration in Ohio, a company called Aeronet, I remember using a 1 megabit per second connection between our office and the hotel I was in. 11 megabits per second was the maximum potential throughput, and normally it was getting about 3 megabits per second in production. So what I really enjoyed with both Peter's kickoff and Professor Ari's 6G presentation and Veli's 5G, right, is that we're in a state right now where, as we talked about the fourth industrial revolution coming up in Industry 4.0, that the roots of telecommunication in the modern era does come from Finland, right? And I think that is really the really exciting part of being involved with Slush and being here with you today. So yes, I have worked on over 100 M&A integrations and divestitures. I just mentioned that because the rate of technology increases. We talked about 20-year cycles. As I think about, we use this kind of joke that everything we ever needed to learn about technology we saw in Star Trek or in the movie Minority Report. And the opening video from Professor Ari was showing us a lot about what this future holds. I think the gentleman just left, but he was asking about sustainability. And I think it was not so much the impact on what we think about in terms of tangible goods, which is certainly part of it, but the enabling factors of what the technology brings for us. And I think, there we go. Okay. Oh, oops, sorry. Oops. Pointing it this way, right? Okay. So one thing that I'm really focused on, both in my investment mindset, my investment thesis, as well as the stuff I cover on my radio show and on social audio like Clubhouse, is this coming thought that McKinsey and companies like Bain have put out studies since about 2017 on the impact of AI, automation, and related technologies on the workforce, the global workforce. So if I said in the United States back in 2017 that McKinsey had already predicted, and again, this is very aggressive, that up to 39 to 75 million US jobs, just US alone, would be impacted negatively or impacted by these technologies, we get very concerned. How do we, as a society, a global society, as we think about university settings, as we think about training people, what is that impact when we have all these automation technologies? So we talk about that because we're in this time frame that we need to do something about that. We need to address that in order to make sure that our labor force, the people that are in school, that they have the skills needed, the term upskilling, in order to still be competitive in the sense of how we look at work today. And I'm one of those people that thinks that the nature of work, the way we educate will change just because of the different theories on how education rose in the last 150 years since the Industrial Revolution. So this slide really is just some projections about what the impact of 5G technologies will have or will not have if it didn't come to be. And so, of course, the number one most impacted industry in this slide is manufacturing. That without 5G technologies, almost 1 million jobs would be lost. And I'm not sure if this was global or if this was just the U.S. alone, but that is something to think about, right? And so back to the gentleman who left, if we think about how sustainability is not just the physical impact, but how societies, as they adopt these technologies, things that Nokia is coming out with, right, that they can both be impactful from our fear of automation, but also if we adopt it, that's where actually most of the projected job increases are expected. So McKinsey did update their slide last year, not their slide, but their actual research, and they did say that in that 39 million job projection, it's now up to 45 million jobs, a minimum in the U.S. alone, but that mitigation would actually have a net difference of about 14 million jobs, right? So at least you can think about what better impact we could have. All right, so spending all the time this week with our friends here in Finland and talking about how this is really the epicenter of where telecommunications was really in the modern era rising. What's showing here is the global 5G value chain output and employment in 2035, right? So again, Professor Ari and I were talking about how really these are very aggressive timelines and maybe it's 2040, but let's not lose sight that these are predictions, whether it's 2030, 2035, or 2040. And we can see here how in China, employment will grow by 9.5 million jobs, US employment will grow by 3.4 million jobs, and then rest of the world. And I think we can all say, well, where's Finland in this, right? I'm still a believer that the technology that came out and was born out of this country is still very relevant. You have a great test network, you have great resources, access to research, capabilities to university systems, and so we need to actually make this slide actually have Finland come back and be the power it should be. Again, another way of showing where people think that the investments are being made in 5G, and then of course we'll get to 6G. And again, right now, certainly in the U.S., I'm of open, full disclosure, I'm of Chinese descent, but I was born in the United States. We actually in the United States have a growing fear of Chinese technology, Chinese components, and what that means is an opportunity for other players to come back into the market. So with that, I am going to hand this off. What? Wait, are you still? Oh, okay, sorry. I'm going to actually talk about why now, right? So I talked a little bit about the future of work and entrepreneurship. So one of the things that is happening, and I don't know if the terminology is here yet, but we talked about the Great Resignation. So during the pandemic, at least certainly in the United States, many people did not return to work. So if you think about growing up in a corporate setting and expecting to have employment in a company, so Cisco or Salesforce or Microsoft or Amazon, remote work enabled people, they liked remote work. That actually goes back to the importance of 5G technology and 6G technologies because as those technologies continue to develop, it enables people to have better access. Who would be surprised if I said that 39% of the United States does not have access to the internet? You'd be surprised, right? So yeah, that's rural America, and actually 65% do not have internet access that's capable of supporting video conferencing, like Zoom, right? And you'd be shocked, right? Because I'm coming from Silicon Valley, or if you're from New York, but imagine being in Middle America. So with the adoption of 5G, we can of course talk about Africa, we could talk about India, we could talk about other societies. I would argue that they're actually deploying mobility a lot faster than the United States because of all of our infrastructure on copper wiring still. That is something where, in order for us to really talk about what I said in a few slides ago, that the future work, future of entrepreneurship, as people are deciding to not go back to a corporate setting, as they want to become innovators and entrepreneurs on their own terms, that these are where the technologies come in. 5G, 6G, and beyond will empower new models of work and business. Why I say that is I grew up in monolithic technology like Cisco, which my favorite company I've worked for. The cost and the barrier of starting your own company has come down a lot, especially with the advent of cloud computing. 10 years ago, when I was still at Cisco, we talked about Dell, how they had transitioned from a startup they acquired and how they discarded that acquisition. But the founders of that company had reformed within 72 hours. Well, today that's still slow. You can actually form your company using Azure, using AWS, using other cloud technologies, you can form that company right away. Other new models of businesses, back to the slide that Professor Ari was showing on blockchain, on the future of 6G, blockchain enablement, decentralization. Of course, people who have that dream of a completely off-grid society or off-grid business model, that only can happen with the speed of information. And then that leads right into reduce inequality, increase global equity and inclusion. As more people have access to these new technologies, which are being developed globally, they have the ability to actually be entrepreneurs on their own term. And as we think about future of global society, that is, I think, where we're headed. So with that, we might have time for one question, and then I'll be done. No? Okay. I'm going to hand this off. Thank you so much. Yep. We're actually going to do a panel at the end and take questions. So thanks again. Thanks for being here.